In the 1890s, a very wealthy man named Walter Rothschild drove a carriage through London pulled by zebras. Actual zebras, stripes and all, trotting past crowds while the public stared. Rothschild was a baron, a collector of strange animals, and exactly the kind of person who would do something like this just to make a point. And he did make a point. A zebra can be tamed. But that stunt also proved exactly why zebras never became domestic animals, because taming and domestication are not the same thing. One is an individual's education, the other is a species-level renovation, and zebras, as a species, never signed up for the renovation. At first glance, this makes no sense. A zebra is basically a horse that ran through a barbershop. Same body plan, same hooves, same long face, same grass diet. If a horse can be turned into a loyal riding animal, why not a zebra? The answer has very little to do with stripes. It starts with a simple idea. A zebra is not a nervous horse. A zebra is a wild animal with a completely different job. People confuse these two ideas all the time. A tame animal is an individual that has learned to tolerate humans. A domestic animal is the result of generations of artificial selection. When humans turned wolves into dogs, we did not just raise friendly wolf puppies. We slowly changed the developmental software. A tame wolf is still a wolf. A dog is something else. Same with a zebra. You can bottle feed a zebra foal, raise it around people, maybe even train it to pull a carriage. But its offspring will be born with the same wild brain as any other zebra. Domestication is a breeding project, not a training project. The problem is that a breeding project requires a starting population you can handle without dying. And that is where zebras become one of the most difficult animals humans have ever tried to work with. To understand why, you need to look at where zebras came from. Horses evolved on the open plains of North America and Eurasia. The populations that eventually became domestic horses had a certain tolerance for pressure. Zebras evolved in Africa. For millions of years, their neighbors included lions, hyenas, painted dogs, leopards, and crocodiles. There is no off-season. There is no safe neighborhood. If you are a young zebra, every weird shadow might be a lion. Every silence might mean the herd has seen something. A zebra's nervous system is tuned to a world where hesitation equals death. This is the animal version of a person who has lived through so many home invasions that they now answer the door with a baseball bat and no questions. And that nervous system does two things at once. It makes the zebra extremely alert, and it makes the zebra extremely violent. If a zebra thinks it is cornered, it does not just panic, it attacks. The same zebra that bolts from a lion can turn around, bite, and kick with enough force to break a lion's jaw. A horse, for the most part, is a flight animal. A zebra is a flight and fight animal. You just never know which one you are going to get. The bite is not a little nip. Zebras fight with their teeth. They latch on, crush, and tear. The kick is worse. They kick with both hind legs, accurately at close range. Zookeepers often rate zebras as one of the most dangerous hoofed animals to handle, not because they are evil, because they treat a human like a hyena that cornered them. But here is the thing. Other dangerous animals have been domesticated. Water buffalo, camels, horses, they all can kill you. So danger alone does not explain it. The real barrier is something deeper. Zebra's social life does not fit the domestication template. When humans domesticated horses, we did not just feed them. We hijacked their social instincts. Horses live in groups with a clear pecking order. A lead mare, a stallion, lower-ranking animals. If you can convince a horse that you are the leader, it will follow you. Not because you are stronger, but because that is how horse society works. A human can insert themselves into the hierarchy and take the top role. The horse accepts it because it wants to belong. Zebras do not do that. They have family groups, sure. Plain zebras live in harems with a stallion, mares, and foals. But their group behavior is not built around following a leader in the same way. When a zebra encounters something strange, it does not look for a boss. It looks for an exit. If there is no exit, it fights. There is no stable social vacancy for a human to fill. You can earn a horse's trust. A zebra will tolerate you as long as you are useful, and the moment you are not, you are a threat. Colonial settlers in Africa learned this the hard way. In the 1800s and early 1900s, imported horses died in large numbers from African horse sickness and diseases carried by tsetse flies. Zebras, being native, are resistant. They can eat low-quality grass, survive the climate, and carry a person. On paper, a zebra was the perfect tropical horse. So people tried. They captured zebra foals, raised them by hand, trained them to saddle and harness. Some individual zebras actually did pull carts. Rothschild's carriage stunt in London was one of those successes. A few zebras trained from a young age, with enormous effort and constant handling. But the successes never turned into a working population. The zebras remained unpredictable. A sudden sound, a strange person, a change in routine. Any of that could turn a trained zebra back into a wild animal. People got hurt. The experiments were abandoned. Not because zebras could not pull a cart, because zebras at scale were a liability. You cannot run a farm or an army with an animal that might suddenly decide the person holding its bridle is a lion. At this point, someone usually asks, why not just breed the calm ones? If you want a domestic zebra, capture the least aggressive zebras, breed them, and keep the tamest offspring. That is how we turned wolves into dogs and wild aurochs into cows. The answer is that domestication is a multi-generation genetic project, and the starting line for zebras is much further back. To breed calm zebras, you first need a group of zebras calm enough to handle, transport, and raise in captivity. But even zebras born in zoos, raised around humans from birth, retain that hair-trigger aggression. They injure keepers. They kick gates. They lunge at barriers. A zebra that seems calm can turn dangerous in a fraction of a second. So selecting for tameness would mean starting with animals that are already dangerous at baseline, and then surviving enough generations to change their genes. Domestication also rewires an animal's whole development. In the famous Siberian fox experiment, researchers selected silver foxes purely for friendliness toward humans. Over generations, the foxes became calmer, but they also changed physically. Floppy ears, curly tails, spotted coats. The genes for tameness were connected to the genes controlling stress and development. That is what real domestication does. It does not just train behavior, it remodels the animal's nervous system. Zebras never went through that. We never got a chance to push their fear threshold down because the first step, handling them safely, was already a full contact sport. This is the part that surprises people. The zebra is not bad at being a horse. It is incredibly good at being a zebra. The same traits that make it impossible to domesticate, hypervigilance, explosive violence, distrust of everything, are the traits that kept it alive in a landscape full of predators. Domestication asks an animal to trade some of its fear and aggression for food and safety. But a zebra's entire evolutionary history says the opposite. Anything unfamiliar is dangerous. And if you hesitate, you are lunch. A zebra stallion does not just run from a lion. It will put itself between the predator and the herd, teeth bared, ready to fight. A zebra defending a foal will charge a hyena. That is not a personality flaw. That is a family policy, which is admirable unless you are the zookeeper trying to put a halter on it. So why can't you tame a zebra? In truth, you can, sometimes. You can tame an individual, just like Rothschild did, but you cannot expect it to stay tame under pressure, and you cannot expect that tameness to be passed on. The zebra remains wild underneath. The difference between a horse and a zebra is not just a paint job. It is millions of years of evolution in a more dangerous neighborhood, a different social brain, and a nervous system that sees captivity as a predator attack. The real question is not why zebras were never domesticated. The real question is why we expected them to be. A zebra looks like a horse, so we assumed it should act like one. But evolution does not care about our convenience. The zebra's temperament was not built for us. It was built against a world that wanted to eat it. And against that world, it won. So if you ever see a zebra-drawn carriage, understand what you are looking at. Not a failed horse, but an animal that made a very specific trade. It traded the chance of becoming livestock for the ability to survive lions. That is not a bad deal.